My twin brother and I were born 1 minute apart. I presented as a beta, he presented as an omega. That 1 minute difference sealed my fate. I was destined to lose to him in everything. I was an unremarkable beta, and everyone only has eyes for a beautiful omega. Even the boyfriend I thought loved me more than anything showed his true colors after my brother, Larry, had an accident. If Larry's hand doesn't heal, your hand will pay the price. It turned out I was just Larry's substitute. Heartbroken, I got into a car accident. When I woke up, I was 20 years old again. I hate to admit it, but my last life was a tragedy. I was born into a middle-class family with a twin brother. Before we presented at age 10, I was a happy, lively kid. My parents didn't play favorites. My brother, Larry, and I got along pretty well. When we were little, my favorite game was identity swap. Larry and I looked almost identical. Besides our parents, almost no one could tell us apart. Every time I pretended to be Larry, I could easily fool everyone. But that all changed after we presented. No one ever mistook me for Larry again, because I became a plain, ordinary beta, while Larry became a precious omega. Maybe being born a minute later meant I was fated to lose to him forever. From that day on, our lives went in completely different directions. As a kid, I didn't understand why my parents suddenly stopped liking me, but they were still just as good to Larry. I tried throwing tantrums to get their attention. All I got was their annoyance. You're too old to be crying all the time. Why can't you be more like your brother? Larry is so sweet and well-behaved. In everyone else's eyes, Larry was gentle, polite, elegant, and handsome. I became the disobedient bad kid. When other people baselessly accused me of things, my parents would just accept it, saying they hadn't raised me right. I wanted to laugh. When had they ever raised me at all? They only had eyes for Larry. At 12, I was sent to boarding school. For the next 6 years, aside from the living expenses they wired me every month, my parents barely gave me a second thought. Meanwhile, Larry was raised at home, showered with care and attention. All because I was a beta. I could be ignored that completely. Larry and I shared a birthday. The first year I was at boarding school, I found a way to sneak out and run home. What are you doing back here? You're already skipping school at your age. I just wanted to celebrate my birthday with my family. It was my birthday too, but the cake only had Larry's name on it. I never celebrated my birthday again after that. My parents had high hopes for Larry, and he didn't disappoint, showing a remarkable talent for the piano. By 15, he was already gaining some fame, and at 18, he was accepted into the prestigious Juilliard School of Music. My parents invested heavily in Larry, mostly hoping he'd get a chance to enter the upper echelons of society and marry a top-tier alpha. Those who presented as alphas all had superior genes. They were society's elite, the ones at the top of the pyramid. No one expected that I, a beta, would be the first to start dating an alpha. And not just any alpha, but the heir to one of the empire's old money families. Alex and I dated for 5 years. For those 5 years, he was incredibly attentive and gentle. He filled the void in me that had always longed to be loved. He'd drive through a storm in the middle of the night if I was sick, staying up all night to take care of me. My lack of love growing up gave me a difficult personality. I was often moody. Alex would comfort me, telling me it wasn't my fault. He would soothe me and put up with my bad temper. He'd surprise me with gifts every now and then. He remembered all my habits and hobbies. And so much more. On our 5th anniversary, Alex gave me a resource planet as a gift. The planet was renamed JS. It stands for Jewel Star, he told me, explaining that from now on all the planet's resources belonged to me. The planet was one of his family's assets. By giving it to me, Alex was essentially announcing to the world that I would be his future partner. A union between an alpha and a beta was extremely rare, especially the heir of a powerful family and a beta from a middle-class background. The media outlets scrambled to report on it. They praised our love story. In my eyes, Alex was the perfect lover. Everyone said he must be head over heels in love with me. Of course, I thought so too. Until the accident. Larry fell down a flight of stairs. The worst injury was to his hands, the hands he used to play the piano. The doctor said it might affect his ability to play in the future. The moment Larry heard he might never play again, he broke down, tears streaming down his face. Omegas secrete special hormones. Ever since Larry presented as an omega, his skin had become even fairer and more delicate. Though we had similarly handsome faces, upon closer look, Larry's features seemed to have become much more refined than mine. He looked heartbreakingly beautiful when he cried. In front of everyone, he asked me, "Did you push me?" I said I didn't, but no one believed me, because when Larry fell, I was standing right behind him. It didn't matter how many times I said I didn't do it. Just because of Larry's one question, everyone decided I was guilty, even without any evidence. They said I'd always been jealous of Larry and bullied him, that I was rotten to the core. My parents said if Larry had any lasting injuries, they'd disown me. My childhood friends said if Larry's hands could no longer play the piano, he'd never forgive me. I could endure all the false accusations and blame, but I never, ever imagined Alex would say, "If Larry's hand doesn't heal, then you can say goodbye to yours." That's when I learned that Alex had been in love with Larry all along. I wasn't even a replacement. I was just a tool he used to get a rise out of Larry. Alex had met Larry in high school, and it was truly love at first sight for him. He was a golden boy, an alpha, so of course he wouldn't suppress his feelings for someone. Alex was forward and passionate with Larry, but Larry said he wasn't ready for a relationship, so Alex chose to wait by his side. He waited until Larry was accepted into Juilliard. Alex threw a huge, romantic party, ostensibly to celebrate for him. And that night, he confessed his love to Larry. He was so sure of himself, but he never expected Larry to turn him down. All of their mutual friends knew about this. They also knew Alex started dating me to make Larry jealous. But in 5 years, not a single one of them let it slip. They played along with Alex's act, and I was the only one who was clueless, like a fool. Even Larry, who knew perfectly well how Alex felt about him, never said a word to me. And the name of that planet, it wasn't some jewel. It was the initials of his name, Larry Shaw, and by some twisted coincidence, my last name was Shaw, too. It was so cliché. And I'd foolishly thought I'd finally found true love. I gave him my heart and soul without reservation. I can't imagine how they must have all been laughing at me behind my back. I was heartbroken. In a daze, I got behind the wheel and crashed. The car broke through the guardrail on the coastal highway and plunged into the sea. When I woke up, I found I'd been reborn. Back to the year I turned 20. My fingers trembled as I held my phone. My heart was pounding, a chill running through my body. For me, the terror of being swallowed by the sea had happened just a second ago. I sat stunned on the bed for a long time before I could process anything. The mattress beneath me was soft and comfortable. I could feel the cool air from the AC on my skin. Everything felt real. This wasn't a dream. I was really reborn. The room felt both familiar and strange. This was the guest room at Sean's house. Sean was a mutual friend of mine and Larry's. We grew up together, so I guess you could call us childhood friends. Sean was also the first person I ever had a crush on. The reason I fell for him was also pretty cliché. I got lost once in elementary school, and Sean was the one who found me. After that, I loved sticking to him. Over time, that turned into dependence. After I presented as a beta and was ignored by everyone, I became even clingier with Sean. My boarding school only let us out once a month for 2 days. My parents didn't like me coming home, so I usually stayed at Sean's place. In this very room, I used to naively think Sean was different, until one time I felt sick and skipped class. I didn't call ahead before going to Sean's. Some things are just fated, I guess. The front door wasn't fully closed that day. I heard Sean say to Larry, "Why can't Larry be as clingy as Leo?" Larry replied, "You rescued him when he was little, that's why he's so attached to you." Sean's voice was laced with frustration. "That was always a misunderstanding." "What do you mean?" Larry asked. "You know how I always used to mix you two up? Well, that time I thought Leo was you." Sean said if he'd known it was me who was lost, he wouldn't have been in such a hurry. Hiding behind the door, listening, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And in that same moment, I realized I had feelings for Sean. Unfortunately, that crush was extinguished the moment it was born. Yesterday was Sean's birthday. I remembered in my past life it was Alex who brought me here. Alex and Sean were high school classmates. I thought they were just good friends. Looking back now, Alex probably just wanted to run into Larry. So when I saw those two familiar figures in the backyard, I wasn't surprised. Alex and Larry both had their backs to me. "Why didn't you come last night?" The tone Alex used with Larry was so much gentler than how he ever spoke to me. "There were too many alphas yesterday. It wasn't convenient for me to be here," Larry replied softly. "What are you afraid of when I'm here?" Alex's arrogance made me want to laugh. Larry put on a show of being understanding. "You're dating my brother now. You should be more serious with him." Alex said impatiently, "You know exactly why I'm with him. Are you trying to piss me off on purpose?" In my past life, I didn't wake up this early. I woke up around noon, and Alex was right there beside me. Seeing me awake, he even asked if I was feeling unwell. I had to hand it to Alex. He could sweet-talk his true love first thing in the morning and still put on such a deeply affectionate act for me. Dying once had given me perspective on a lot of things. Thinking back on my pathetic, short life, my biggest regret was not living for myself. God gave me a second chance. I wasn't going to waste another second on these worthless people. If dating me is such a sacrifice, then let's break up. I was never the type to suffer in silence. Besides, the first thing I wanted to do after being reborn was break up with Alex. "Leo, you're awake?" A flash of panic crossed Alex's eyes as he turned around. Larry's back seemed to stiffen, too. I repeated myself, "We're breaking up," then turned and walked away. My parents were a little surprised to see me at home. In my past life, after I moved in with Alex, I never came back. It must have been almost 4 years, right? We had guests. Seeing Nick and his parents, I felt a little dazed. Nick's family lived next door to us. His parents and my parents were on good terms and used to visit each other often. The contact stopped after they moved away. Nick was 3 years older than me. Most people present between the ages of 10 and 15. But Nick showed no signs of presenting, even at 23. He was classified as a beta. But privately, everyone said he was defective. Nick was tall, probably close to 6'3", with a face handsome enough to be carved from jade. He got top grades and excelled at everything he did. Such a perfect man, but just because he hadn't presented, he couldn't get any recognition. My parents would praise him to his face, but behind their backs, they looked down on him. They knew Larry had a crush on Nick, so they did everything they could to keep them apart. Later, Nick became a hotshot official in the Interstellar Alliance. They were kicking themselves with regret, but when they tried to reconnect with him, they found they had no way of contacting him at all. In my past life, I didn't have much contact with Nick. Other than my parents, Nick was the only one who could tell me and Larry apart before we presented. He could always see right through my disguises, calling me a child with the air of a world-weary old man. He was only 7 at the time. He was always a precocious kid, didn't fit in, and loved to put me down. He always made me feel intensely inadequate. I always thought Nick hated me, so I hated him back. In my past life, I didn't care about news of Nick. I didn't know when his family moved. I didn't know when he joined the military. Not until Nick became a hero in a major battle, presenting as an extremely high-level alpha during the fight. In the years that followed, Nick's military achievements piled up, and he rose through the ranks of the Alliance military and government. He became a household name. I heard news about him without even trying. They said people were breaking down his door trying to arrange marriages with him. My parents were among them. They couldn't find Nick, so they thought of me, wanting me to use Alex's network to help them get in touch. That's also when I learned that Larry had a secret crush on Nick. I remember telling Alex about it like it was some big joke. Thinking back now, Alex's mood soured right after he heard Larry had a crush on Nick. But I was so stupid. I thought he was just tired when he said he was. I looked up and my eyes met Nick's. His eyes were as dark and deep as an abyss. It seemed like he'd been watching me since I walked in the door. "Leo, you're back?" Nick's mom was the first to greet me. Now my parents couldn't pretend I wasn't there. "Why didn't Alex come back with you?" To them, I was less important than an outsider. I walked straight over and sat down next to Nick, smiling. Nick, you're in the military now, right? On the way home, I'd been thinking about my future. I wanted to get away from all these people completely. Enlisting was my best option. Omegas have heat cycles. Their pheromones during heat can severely affect alphas on the battlefield. So omegas are strictly forbidden from all military and government positions. This was a world Larry could never touch. Get away from Larry. And everyone else would disappear from my life too. Nick, can you help me enlist? I heard you guys get one recommendation slot each year, right? For a beta to join the Alliance military, you either had to test into a military academy or get in on merit. I had already missed my best chance. But there was a shortcut right in front of me. I couldn't guarantee Nick would help me, but I had to try. Are you serious? Nick's reply gave me a flicker of hope. The Nick in front of me was very different from the one in my memory. My impression of him from my past life was limited to TV news, mostly photos or written reports. In the rare live interviews, Nick, in his military uniform, always had a stern, cold expression. By then, he was already the youngest colonel in the Alliance. He had become someone completely out of our reach. The Nick of today didn't have that same intimidating presence. Everyone had underestimated him. Of course I'm sorry. My mom cut me off, furious. What is this nonsense? I knew they didn't care if I actually joined the military. They were afraid that if I did, their golden goose, Alex, would be gone. My parents didn't care what happened to my future. It didn't sting as much as it did in my last life. In your eyes, haven't I always been the bad kid? I didn't beat around the bush. Afraid your golden goose will fly away? Don't worry. Just give your good son a little push. Alex is in love with him. Just get them together. What are you talking about? Larry's angry voice came from behind me. I turned around. It wasn't just him, Alex was there, too. Larry rarely dropped his obedient mask. He was probably afraid Nick would misunderstand. That's why he was showing such obvious displeasure. Alex also frowned slightly. Leo, you've misunderstood. Oh really? I'm making it up? I gave a casual laugh and turned back to Nick. Nick, I'll be waiting for your news. Nick gave a soft Alex suddenly grabbed my wrist. Leo, come with me for a second. I need to talk to you. I couldn't fight him off, so he dragged me out to the balcony. What do you want to say? I pulled my hand back. Leo, it's not what you think. Oh? Then what is it? I couldn't be bothered to listen to his excuses. Are you telling me you're not in love with Larry? Alex fell silent. I smiled. So what's wrong with me making you both happy? Alex suddenly clicked his tongue in frustration. Can you stop being so unreasonable? I scoffed. So it's true that people get defensive when you hit a nerve? Leo! Just as Alex snapped at me, the sliding door to the balcony was pulled open. Nick walked out, his expression calm. He lifted the cigarette between his fingers. Just getting some air, he said softly. Alex's anger was cut short, and embarrassment flashed across his face. I wasn't sure if Nick did it on purpose or not, but in that moment, I thought he was the coolest person alive. From their conversation, I learned that Nick's family was planning to move tomorrow. That's why my parents had invited them over for a farewell dinner today. I knew my parents wouldn't want me to stay for dinner, so I packed my bags and prepared to leave. The meteorite diamond bracelet dug painfully into my palm. This was supposed to be Alex's birthday present. It was the same in my past life. The bracelet was somehow delivered to my parents' house. I had to sneak back to get it. Except in my last life, I didn't come back on this day. Now, there was no way I was giving this bracelet to Alex. It was a custom piece, so I couldn't return it, and it was incredibly expensive. I had spent almost all my savings on it. I really was an idiot in my last life. I dragged my suitcase through the living room. Everyone was already at the dining table, ready to eat. Only Nick was still sitting on the sofa. Nick's parents wanted to say something, but my parents cut them off. Just then, Nick stood up, looked at me and said calmly, "Not staying for dinner?" I froze. I was so used to being ignored, but for some reason, I felt a pang of sadness. Alex, my supposed boyfriend, was sitting at that table and chose to ignore me. But Nick, who had disliked me since we were kids, was asking why I wasn't eating with them. In front of everyone, I took out the velvet box and placed it in front of Nick. "Nick, this is for you." Nick looked up at me. I smiled. "I'll be counting on you for that favor." Nick opened the black velvet box. Under the living room lights, the meteorite diamonds inside sparkled brilliantly. The expressions on both Alex's and Larry's faces turned ugly in an instant. After I left, Larry said to Alex, "Aren't you going to go talk to him?" Alex said nonchalantly, "I spoil him too much. That's why he's acting so spoiled." He was convinced that in a couple of days, Leo would come back, begging for forgiveness. Nick walked over and sat down next to his parents. Alex glanced at the velvet box Nick had placed on the table. He said casually, "Are you really going to accept a gift with no sincerity behind it?" Nick looked up at him. Alex scoffed. "That was supposed to be my birthday present." In his past life, Leo had never hidden anything from Alex, so he told him early on that he was getting him a meteorite diamond bracelet as a gift. "You want it back?" Nick's expression was still calm. Alex froze, then snapped, "Are you kidding? I can order as many of these bracelets as I want." Nick's tone was cool. He opened the velvet box, took out the bracelet, and fastened it around his wrist. Then he said slowly, "Then why are you so angry? Is it because you can't order one exactly like it?" Alex's face turned even uglier. 2 days later, Nick notified me to prepare for enlistment. I didn't expect him to move so quickly. Recommendations for enlistment were made public. I didn't know what Nick's rank was in the military right now, but in another year, everyone would be clamoring to get on his good side. And now, with the title of Nick's recommendation, it would definitely help me immensely in the future. The high-intensity, brutal training for new recruits was almost too much for me. But I wanted to make something of myself. I didn't have many options, so no matter how hard or tiring it was, I had to stick with it. I didn't run into Nick during training, but he was a hot topic of conversation for many. A powerful but unpresented, defective beta would naturally attract jealousy from others. Those alphas couldn't do anything to Nick, so they naturally turned their attention to me, the new recruit Nick had recommended. Several alphas cornered me in the bathroom and beat me up. They called me a useless bum who could only rely on connections. I endured it, but then they sneered that a reject and a defective were a match made in heaven. That I couldn't endure. I didn't care if they called me useless or a charity case, but I couldn't tolerate them calling Nick defective to my face. I knew what an incredible, celebrated figure Nick would become. And besides, he had helped me. I had to defend him. I lunged at those alphas and we started brawling. How could a beta possibly win against an alpha? I only got in a few punches before they pinned me to the ground and beat me mercilessly. Fists like sandbags rained down on me without mercy. My stomach and back ached from being kicked. I could taste blood in my mouth. I felt like I was going to throw up. Just then, the locked bathroom door was kicked open with tremendous force. The alphas surrounding me were violently pulled away. I heard the dull thud of fists hitting flesh. Through my blurry vision, I saw a tall, powerful figure. He took down all of those alphas who were about his size. Idiot. Before I passed out, that deep voice echoed in my mind. When I woke up, I was lying in a med pod. The injuries on my body had already been healed. Med pods were expensive to use. Unless you were seriously injured, most people wouldn't choose to use one. Nick was standing just outside. Seeing I was awake, he opened the pod door for me. So it was Nick who saved me. I slowly sat up, my voice hoarse. "Nick, I can't afford to pay this back anytime soon." Nick handed me a nutrient pack. "Why did you fight them? When you're not strong enough, you should learn to back down." I sipped the nutrient pack and said helplessly, "Even if I backed down, would they have let me go?" "It would have saved you a few punches," Nick said, completely serious. I couldn't help but laugh. "Nick, have you ever been ganged up on?" Nick said without a change in expression, "Frequently." I was surprised. "Even now?" Nick said calmly, "It's a common thing in the military." I sighed. I guess being too outstanding isn't always a good thing. Too many people get jealous. The corners of Nick's mouth twitched upward slightly. The smile was faint and gone in an instant, but in that fleeting moment, my heart skipped a beat. Nick was genuinely handsome. So handsome that even though he hadn't presented and was secretly called defective, he was still incredibly popular with Omegas. His looks were dangerously captivating. So I didn't think my racing heart was a sign that I was falling for him. I don't know if it was my imagination, but after that, I started running into Nick more often. Nick? I always greeted him first. Nick was a man of few words. Most of the time, he would just nod back at me. Occasionally, he would chat with me for a bit. My roommate teased me, "Are you sucking up to Captain Vance because you want to join his squad?" After basic training, we had to choose which squad we wanted to join. Compared to the alpha captains, Nick's squad was the most popular choice among the soldiers. I finished in the top 3, which gave me priority in choosing my squad. Of course, I chose Nick's. I was confident he would approve my application. But he rejected me. "Nick, why did you reject my application? Do you think I'm not good enough?" My scores were more than enough to qualify for his squad. "I've already applied for a more suitable squad for you." Nick didn't answer my question directly, though I didn't understand why. I didn't have the right to question him. In the end, I joined the squad Nick had chosen for me. My attempts to get on Nick's good side were seen as brown-nosing by others. Many people talked trash about me behind my back. Maybe Nick didn't want me hanging around him either. He had already done more than enough for me, so I proactively kept my distance from him. After basic training ended, the restrictions on our communication devices were lifted. It wasn't long before Alex called me. "Are you really planning to stay in the military forever?" I didn't answer. He continued in a tone that suggested he was doing me a favor. "Leo, don't do something you'll regret just to spite me." I scoffed and hung up. Then I blocked his number from my terminal. I started my mech simulation classes. After getting my hands on a mech, I realized how difficult it was to control these things. Alphas have much higher psionic aptitude than betas, giving them a natural advantage in piloting mechs. The more advanced the mech, the harder it is to control. But in the battle that made Nick a legend, it wasn't just because he single-handedly turned the tide and won. It was also because the mech he was piloting at the time was only a C-class, and that mech was already severely damaged during the fight. It was completely scrapped after the victory. It was supposed to be an impossible battle to win. That's why, after that battle, Nick was hailed as a living legend. His scrapped mech was even put on display in a museum. The battlefield is no joke. Before new recruits like us could go into real combat, we had to pass numerous assessments. The most important of these was the mech combat simulation, and that happened to be my weak spot. I felt like my piloting was fine, but in several assessments, my scores were barely passing. My captain had always been good to me, but my simulation scores probably disappointed him a little. He told me earnestly, "Leo, if your final assessment scores aren't good, you might be assigned to logistics." I joined the military to fight on the front lines, to change my fate through my achievements. I couldn't be a logistics soldier. I was incredibly anxious during that time. The more I tried to do well, the worse my assessment scores got. Just when I was feeling discouraged, my captain suddenly sent a video to my terminal. I opened it and found it was all recordings of my combat simulations. Every mistake and vulnerability in each simulation was screen captured and annotated with text explaining how to improve. That video helped me immensely. In my next simulation, my score improved significantly. I excitedly ran to thank my captain, but he said, "You should be thanking Captain Vance." I froze. I never thought Nick was the one who made the video. At that moment, my feelings were complicated. I couldn't quite put my finger on why. I went to find Nick with a basket of fruit. I was surprisingly nervous the whole way there. The moment I saw him, my brain completely short-circuited. I opened my mouth, but all that came out was a single lame I. Nick lowered his gaze, his eyes sweeping over the fruit basket in my hands. "Here to say thank you?" I nodded. He asked me, "How were your scores this time?" I immediately replied, "I got a B this time." Nick's lips curved into a slight smile. "I stayed up for 2 nights making that video. Do you think a fruit basket is enough thanks? What else would you like, Nick? Just say the word." If I can buy it, it's yours. I was eager to please, and I genuinely wanted to get on his good side. Buy me dinner. Huh? Oh, okay, sure. I thought Nick would want something fancy, but he said the mess hall was fine. On the way to the mess hall, my terminal rang with an unknown number. I answered, confused. I'm seeing someone new. The first words out of his mouth left me speechless. Oh, congratulations. If you come back to me now, I can still give you a chance. Alex's entitled tone made me want to hang up immediately. I don't know where he got the confidence to think that if he offered me a chance, I would definitely come crawling back to him. I had already blocked his number because he was annoying me. How could he have the nerve to call me from a new number? What, still haven't won Larry over yet? Leo! You? My sarcastic jab clearly got to him. I didn't give him a chance to continue and hung up. Then I blocked this new number too. Nick glanced at me. Ex-boyfriend? I nodded awkwardly. Over him? Someone who doesn't love me isn't worth my time. Nick didn't say anything else. I thought he wasn't interested, so I changed the subject. After that, whenever I ran into a problem, I would shamelessly go ask Nick for guidance. Luckily, he never refused, and I would always treat him to a meal. The more I interacted with Nick, the more I realized he wasn't as cold as he seemed. He was actually a gentle person. My first real combat was a small-scale mission. Originally, only our squad was assigned. But when we were about to depart, Nick showed up too. What's Captain Vance doing here for a minor skirmish like this? My captain teased, his eyes darting toward me with a grin. I tried not to read into it, but my face flushed and my heart started racing anyway. Nick didn't show any reaction. I was assigned by command to assist you. My captain said, "Command doesn't trust me?" Nick deadpanned, "Correct." My captain flipped him the bird. "I really want to call your bluff." The insectoid swarm we were facing this time wasn't large. The real battlefield was completely different from the simulations. I had never felt so exhilarated. In my past life, when I fell into the sea, my last moments were filled with despair and fear. But now, I had completely put life and death out of my mind. During the battle, I noticed Nick was always nearby. It gave me the illusion that he was protecting me. Maybe because Nick had personally coached me on my mech piloting, our coordination was flawless. I sustained a minor injury at the end of the battle. Nick handed me a tube of cryogel. "You did very well today." My hand paused as I took the gel, and my heart started to pound again. Nick's praise made me happier than the victory itself. Nick also participated in my next 2 battles. "So what's the deal with you and Captain Vance?" During a training break, a teammate I was friendly with teased me with a smile. We were next-door neighbors. I heard a bunch of people tried to get Captain Vance's recommendation before, but he turned them all down. "You're the only one he's ever recommended. Maybe he sees me as a little brother." My teammate nudged my shoulder, saying meaningfully, "I don't think so. Before you joined our squad, Captain Vance had a little chat with our captain. And our squad is enough for these small skirmishes. Captain Vance is definitely joining in because he's worried about you." My teammate's words threw my thoughts into disarray. Maybe the first time was really an order from command, but the next 2 were hard to explain. With Nick's skill level, he didn't need these small battles to pad his record. I didn't want to get my hopes up, but I couldn't help but overthink it. I had already realized my feelings for Nick had changed. I don't know when it started, but I found myself paying close attention to any news about him. Whenever I saw him, my heart would race and I'd get flustered. I was falling for him, but I couldn't let these feelings continue to grow. The future Nick was a leader at the top of the pyramid. His partner would surely be an exceptional Omega. Soon we would be worlds apart. I knew my place. I would never be good enough for him. "Why are you avoiding me again?" I wanted to run from my feelings, so I started trying to keep my distance from Nick again. I didn't expect him to corner me and demand an answer. I couldn't come up with an explanation. Nick looked down at me, his eyes quiet, as if he wouldn't let me go until I answered. I've just been really busy lately. I had to make something up. I heard you only train in the mornings and have the afternoons off." Nick ruthlessly called my bluff. "Nick, did you need something from me?" I tried to change the subject. Do I need a reason to see you? Nick's tone was flat, but I could feel he was angry. I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? Are you angry? No. I was just wondering if I did something to make you angry. What? Nick's words stunned me. Why would he think he made me angry? No. Why would he even care? You? Nick suddenly handed me something, cutting me off. I looked down. It was a data chip. What's this? The ownership deed for a planet. I didn't get it. What planet? The planet that should have been yours all along. I plugged the chip into my terminal. The planet's registration number was identical to the one Alex had given me in my past life. I was stunned. Was this a coincidence? Isn't this planet one of the Croft family's assets? Nick didn't deny it. The Croft family's roots were rotten. Many of their assets were seized during a recent investigation. This planet was one of them. I bought it at auction. Was it expensive? I couldn't even imagine how much a resource planet would cost. It was manageable. I didn't believe him. My heart trembled. Why would you give me something so valuable? Didn't you give me a meteorite diamond bracelet? Nick lifted his left hand. His sleeve slid back, revealing the bracelet on his wrist. I had noticed a while ago that he wore it every day. The value of these two things isn't even comparable. I looked away, feeling guilty. When I gave him the bracelet, I had partly done it to spite Alex. Then consider it an apology gift. But you didn't do anything wrong. Then why are you avoiding me? I was afraid I wouldn't be able to hide my feelings. But there was no way I could ever say that out loud. Seeing my silence, Nick changed the subject. You don't seem to care why the Croft family was investigated. I asked, confused, why should I care? Nick chuckled softly and murmured, as long as you don't care, that's all that matters. The great battle that would change the course of Nick's life was approaching. I was suddenly assigned by my captain to a closed-door training program. It would last a month. I had no right to refuse. I knew Nick would win this battle, but I still worried for his safety. During the training, I was cut off from all outside news. I could only force myself to pour all my energy into training. The special training really did help me grow and improve a lot. The day the training ended was also the day Nick returned victorious. I knew from my past life that this event was a huge deal, but experiencing it firsthand, I realized just how insane it was. The man everyone was talking about was still lying in the hospital. Nick had been seriously injured in the battle. His external wounds had probably been healed by a medpod, but I heard the side effects of his presentation were severe. He was still in a coma. I knew he would survive this presentation too, but I still snuck into his hospital room to see him. After this, he would leave the military and enter politics. I was afraid that soon, I would only be able to see him on TV again. I only meant to take one look and leave. But I didn't realize how deep my feelings and longing for him had become. The moment I saw him, tears started streaming down my face. My fingers unconsciously reached out to touch his cheek. But just then, Nick's eyes opened. Before I could react, he grabbed my wrist. The world spun. The next thing I knew, Nick had me pinned to the bed, his arms wrapped around me. Nick, MMMPH. There was no time to explain. His mouth crushed mine. It was a fierce, biting kiss. I couldn't fight back. Nick's whole body was burning hot. The fiery heat felt like it would melt my skin. I was like a captured fawn at the mercy of a predator. His sharp teeth pierced the gland on the back of my neck. A flood of potent pheromones poured into my body. That night, I went from resisting to surrendering. From surrendering to cooperating. It was a sleepless night. The next day, I woke up in Nick's arms. I looked up and met his complex gaze, and my heart slowly sank. Last night, I wasn't in control of my actions. Nick said it was an alpha's instinct. My heart felt like it was being ripped apart, but I forced myself to say, it's okay. I'll pretend it never happened. Nick was silent for a moment. It already happened. I'll take responsibility for you. I didn't want him to compromise his future for some sense of duty. You don't have to force yourself. I won't use this to threaten you. But as I said it, I couldn't stop the tears from flowing. Nick pulled me into his arms, his voice soft. Leo, you've misunderstood. He called me Leo. I was surprised. When I said I wasn't in control, I wasn't trying to shirk responsibility. I was just angry at myself for giving you a bad first experience. I love you. I'm gonna marry you. Every word he said was a shock to my system. My mind went completely blank. My cheeks, however, were turning beet red. You love me? My face was a mask of disbelief. I've loved you for a long time, Nick replied with a smile. It was the first time I'd ever seen him smile so openly. Liar. That's impossible. I still couldn't believe it. Do you know why I didn't let you join my squad? I didn't understand why the topic had jumped, but I went along with it and asked why. Because I knew I was going to have to fight this battle. Even though I knew I would win, I was worried your involvement would change the outcome. Nick's strange explanation made a startling possibility pop into my head. My eyes widened as I looked at him, my hand unconsciously gripping his. Nick squeezed my hand reassuringly. I wasn't worried about losing. That battle had heavy casualties, and I was afraid I wouldn't be able to protect you. If anything happened to you again, I would never be able to forgive myself. You? Yes. Nick seemed to know what I was going to say and answered directly. I've lived 2 lives, too. I was completely shocked. Why you too? Did you die once too? Maybe even God was moved by me. What does that mean? But no matter how many times I asked, Nick wouldn't tell me. You've really loved me for a long time? There's no point in me lying to you. But we barely had any contact in our past life. You were the one who didn't want any contact with me. I was always watching you. My face turned bright red again. Then you never let me know. Before I presented, I was just a defective in everyone's eyes. I didn't think I had any right to compete with Alex. Besides, I always thought you and Alex were happy together. All I wanted was for you to be happy. Turned out we were both the same. Both of us had no confidence in ourselves. I thought you hated me. I love you. How can someone say they love you so smoothly and sound so sincere? Leo, I've already marked you. You'll marry me, right? Betas can't be marked. I knew Nick was well aware of that. He was saying it on purpose. I was so embarrassed my face was on fire. Under his gaze, I slowly nodded. I will. The day our engagement was announced, it caused a massive uproar. Nick had just become a new rising star in the military and government, and his sudden announcement of marriage left many Omegas heartbroken. I, on the other hand, became the subject of public debate. I thought I would be criticized, but unexpectedly, I received more blessings than anything. My parents couldn't believe it. They blew up my phone. Leo, you need to call off this engagement right now. Larry is on the verge of a breakdown because of this news. My father's accusation was laughable. Because Larry was having a breakdown, they wanted me to cancel my wedding? Leo, you need to get a grip and give Nick to Larry. An alpha and an omega together is the right way. Nick is a person, not an object. Then how could you steal the person Larry loves? I couldn't understand how my mother could say such things with such a straight face. I didn't even have the energy to argue with her. Nick took the terminal from me. Ma'am, in the future, please direct these matters to me. His tone was calm, but the pressure he exuded was immense. My mother stammered, Nick, that's not what I meant. I'm just looking out for both of you. An alpha and a beta together, what kind of pairing is that? And Nick, our Larry really likes you. He's an omega, he's a better match for you. Nick hummed in acknowledgement. I know who I'm most compatible with. I also hope you understand that I was the one who begged Leo to marry me.
Impossible.
Larry's distraught face appeared on the screen. He's just a beta. How could you possibly fall in love with him? It has nothing to do with him being a beta or an omega. Is it because he's Leo? Nick replied, still calm. Larry became even more hysterical. No, Nick. How could you do this to me? I love you so much. I've loved you since we were kids. I've been waiting for you. I turned down so many people for you. How could you be with Leo? You can't. Your feelings have nothing to do with me. After saying that, Nick hung up. I thought Larry would eventually give up, but he went to Nick's workplace and caused a scene, threatening to kill himself. Because of his resemblance to me, it caused a misunderstanding that made a lot of headlines. I love him so much. How could he betray me? Larry cried in an interview, looking like a victim who had been wronged. People thought Nick had abandoned him for someone else. Nick didn't make a special clarification. He just took me out in public a few times. The rumors fell apart on their own. Everyone learned that Larry was my twin brother. The direction of public opinion shifted instantly. A brother trying to steal his younger brother's husband pushed Larry into the spotlight. Someone then exposed how my parents had always neglected me and favored Larry. The three of them were so thoroughly dragged through the mud they could barely live in the alliance anymore. Nick was the alliance's hero. He held a special place in the hearts of its people. As Nick's future partner, I was naturally protected by them as well. The whole farce finally ended when my parents took Larry and left the alliance. I asked Nick why he fell in love with me. They were right about one thing. Alphas are naturally drawn to omegas. I had been in a failed relationship before. Even though Nick and I were about to get married, sometimes I still lacked confidence. Nick must have sensed my insecurity. He gently kissed my lips. "Leo, have you ever wondered why only the two of us were reborn?" I shook my head. "I've never thought about it." Nick chuckled. "Because we were destined to be in the same world. It has nothing to do with our designations." The day before the wedding, I got a call from Alex. I thought he was calling to annoy me again, but he asked, "Are you happy now?" Of course. Alex was silent for a long time, so long I was about to hang up. Then I heard him say, "As long as you're happy." "Did you need something?" I found it strange. "No, I sent you a wedding gift." "You don't have to." I refused without a second thought. "Just let me give you one last gift." "Thank you, but really, you don't have to." I didn't want anything from Alex to make Nick jealous. "If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up." Wait, my hand paused over the disconnect button.
I'm sorry, Leo.
I was so stupid. I didn't recognize my own feelings and I lost you. I know it's too late to say this now, and I know I don't have a chance to win you back. But I ordered that gift for you a long time ago. Please just accept it. Alex's voice started to break toward the end. I was so caught off guard I didn't refuse in time, and he hurriedly hung up. Alex was now the head of the Croft family. Over the past year, the family had been investigated by the Alliance multiple times. All of their shady, behind-the-scenes dealings had been exposed. In the end, the old money family fell from grace. And the reason the Alliance investigated them was because of Nick pulling strings behind the scenes. In the last life after I died, Nick didn't spare Alex either. This life, he just moved things up. The Croft family was corrupt. They were going to be investigated sooner or later, he'd said. He mentioned that his methods in the last life were much harsher. He hadn't left the Croft family any room to survive. This time, he had been more lenient because I had left Alex early on. He had only meddled to let off some steam on my behalf. In the end, I never found out what Alex sent me. There was no chance of it ever reaching my hands. Nick intercepted it directly. I don't know what he did with it. On my wedding day, I gazed at the handsome man before me. For some reason, I thought of an interview he did in my past life. In that interview, the host asked him if he had anyone he was interested in. He said yes. For a long time after that, everyone was guessing who could have captured the heart of the cold, aloof colonel. But in the end, no one ever found a single clue. Who would have thought that person would be me? Bonus chapter. Nick's neighbors were a pair of twins. The older brother was quiet and well-behaved. The younger one was loud and mischievous. Nick was an only child. His parents were both intellectuals who had been strict with his education since he was young. This led him to mature faster than other kids his age. His precocious nature also made him an outcast. He had a hard time playing with other children. A child's world is simple. If you play together, you're friends. If you don't, you're not. So, as a child, Nick had no friends. Only Leo would always come running to find him, either to show off his childish little toys, or to pretend to be Larry to try and trick him. Nick never understood why other people couldn't tell Leo and Larry apart. He thought they were perfectly easy to distinguish. He could easily see through Leo's disguises every time. Leo would get mad, but he would always come back the next time. It was like he had an endless supply of energy. Innocent and so very loud. First, Nick found the kid really annoying. Slowly, he got used to the noise. He liked calling Leo a child. He found it amusing whenever he managed to get the kid angry. Leo was his only childhood playmate. But only he knew that. When Leo's parents chatted with his parents at their house, they didn't hide their true feelings. Nick learned early on that Leo's parents placed a heavy emphasis on designations. So the treatment Leo received after presenting as a beta was within his expectations. He just didn't have the standing to comfort Leo. When Leo got a little older, he stopped wanting to play with him. Nick was introverted. If Leo didn't come, he wouldn't go looking for him. And so, their relationship faded. When Leo was sent to boarding school at 12, Nick even went to check out the school. The conditions were mediocre. It made him feel deeply uncomfortable. But he was just a kid himself and couldn't do anything. At the time, he didn't understand why Leo's misfortune made him so upset. Nick didn't present by 15. Although he was classified as a beta, in his heart, he had accepted that he was defective. He was surrounded by strange looks and whispers. Nick admitted that those years were not easy. But his mental fortitude was strong, and those experiences became a stepping stone to his future success. After Larry was accepted to Juilliard, he had confessed his feelings to Nick. Nick hadn't presented yet, so he couldn't smell pheromones. That was the one and only time he had ever mistaken Leo for Larry. Later, he understood. It wasn't that he couldn't tell them apart. It was that deep down, he had hoped the person confessing to him was Leo. He thought Leo and Alex were happy together. But then he learned that Leo had plunged into the sea and died. Those people gave up searching for his body after only 2 days. Nick hired a professional salvage team. Even though he knew the hope was slim, he kept spending money, telling the team not to stop. Leo's death brought Nick immense pain. He was afraid Leo wouldn't be able to rest in peace. Nick had never been a believer in gods or spirits, but for Leo to have a proper burial, he went to a temple and knelt. He prayed to a dozen different gods. He knelt up thousands of steps. He only prayed to find Leo's body. He never expected that he would fall asleep and, upon waking, find himself back in the past. The moment he was reborn and saw Leo again in the Shaw family home, Nick made a promise to himself. This time, he would never let Leo go to anyone else.